the less effective it is. The quicker it can get from A to B and unload and get back and go pick up the next one, the better off it is. So Dr. Bill's absolutely right. It's all about Singapore to LA Long Beach, Hong Kong to LA Long Beach, and those direct routes are going to be the key for that. Because of the infrastructure and the rail bridge now that's being invested, you're going to have a much more efficient transit to the East Coast. So here's another logistics term for you. It's called transloading. Transloading is where you unload ocean containers. They come in 40-foot containers and put them into 53-foot truck trailers. Why would you do that? Because it takes 3 ocean containers, you can put it into 2 53s, and you're more efficient. And then what are they doing with 53-foot containers now? Putting them on rail cars. So let's talk about the other big infrastructure that's happening. Kind of a cool deal. I mean, you can actually like hear the guy saying, and you're still grabbing your briefcase out of the car and you're still on it. It's the greatest thing ever. But that's all going to be gone on a high-speed system. So are we really thinking about utilizing existing infrastructure as effectively as we could? Are we really taking care of both problems, which are people movement and goods movement? And I think Ray Watson has something that's really there, which is connectivity to the existing rail, because the biggest problem we have even now is how hard is it to get a cab if you get off that Amtrak down there to get anywhere? Where do you go from there? So if we're going to create a whole new system that doesn't have the interconnectivity to existing rails, I don't know what we're thinking. Particularly when some of these cities now want you to push some of the stations out on the far side of town. You ever go to Modesto's Amtrak station? Yeah, somebody in their infinite wisdom didn't use the UP line right down the middle. They used the BNSF line out in the twigs. Well, try and get a cab out there if you end up in Modesto at 8 o'clock at night. That's a real feat. So it's this whole interconnectivity deal. Again, it's the existing infrastructure is there. Sure, we've got problems downtown by VHS. We've got town problems in Fresno with the widening. Those are things that can be figured out. Question, sir?
How do you feel about taking Amtrak to LA?
Okay, they're putting another track over the Tehachapi's. The question would be, how do we add a third and have that be dedicated service? Now, when I was a little kid, I remember this. My parents made a big deal out of this. I was actually on the last train to LA. We were little. I don't know where my dad got this crazy idea, but we did that because they're shutting down the service. We got to go get on. I had no idea this was something I'm studying. 45 years later. So how do we bring that back? Well, it got pushed down or got shut down because of the freight. It's the same thing. And all we have to do is get that train from Bakersfield to Saugus or to Valencia, because right there you can catch LA Metro and take it all the way into downtown.
All the way to San Diego.
So you don't have to go that far. It's not that big of a run. And that rail line coming out past, coming up to 14 is underutilized. There's a lot of capacity on that rail. So it's really just through the mountains that we've got to figure out. You're not talking about that much more to get connected. But it's the same argument. How do you combine freight and passenger rail, do it maybe a little bit less speed?
I may have misunderstood. You said at 90 miles an hour, the train can get from Bakersfield to Sacramento in 2 hours?
Well, I think the high-speed deal would get there. Don't quote me on that. I don't know that was really scientific.
No. You said 90 miles an hour.
Okay.
And Sacramento in 2 hours. I thought that's what you said.
Okay.
So 3 hours, what's the difference?
3 hours. It's a big difference if you want to come back the same day. I mean, we can argue that, but I know where you're coming from. But I'm just saying that 90 miles an hour doesn't move the people like a high-speed train.
All I'm saying is the difference is going to be about an hour between the two.
No.
Yes, it
You're
will.
going to
Bakersfield to Sacramento?
You're going to pick that up in security. If I have a 7 o'clock train, I have to show up at 5:30 or 6. By the time I actually get off the train in Sacramento, it's going to be about a push.
How long did it take you to go to the maglev in Shanghai?
That was about a 17-minute ride.
No, to get on. When you bought your ticket to get on, you went through security.
Went through security.
We were on in 10 minutes.
I don't even think it took that long.
Yeah, that's my point. You can get on a high-speed train very quickly.
I don't
quicker
know.
than the airport.
I don't know.
What's the security on the high-speed train?
In Shanghai, they didn't have any security.
Sure they did. Oh yeah, I did. You go through a gun. You go through the same thing you do when you go in the airport.
I don't even remember it. So
Let's
it's
put-
significant.
I'm just saying you're exaggerating. 90 miles an hour doesn't get you to Sacramento in 2 hours.
Okay, if you do the, the rate.
So take 3
distance and
hours,
time,
200
You may be right.
3 hours.
270 miles, 3 hours, takes 3 hours. What's the difference?
It's more like
Because
4
you
hours.
can drive there in
Okay.
4 hours.
Yeah.
Gene,
No, I'm
time
just-
out. The point is not 2 hours versus 3 hours. The point is how many billions of dollars versus
Precisely.
300 million.
Exactly.
Precisely,
point.
that's the issue.
Okay? I don't care if it takes me an extra hour, if I'm not being taxed to death and I don't have this huge hangover and you don't have, and the basic premise in my book is, why not test it at 90 miles an hour? If ridership is coming off out of the train, we're so successful, and you've raised fees a little bit so where you actually have a surplus and Amtrak is unsubsidized. Oh, okay, now let's talk about building
Yes.
a really great train because we've proven the model economically. And I'm not a high-speed rail expert, but the one thing that I saw that just makes me scratch my head is, are the projection numbers and the fares, are those good numbers to use? I think the projection on how many people will actually take it are pretty high. Because, and I'll tell you why. Because there's too many alternatives. And the biggest alternative, I think, is Southwest Airlines. The last time I checked Southwest website to go from LAX to San Francisco or Sacramento, it was $68.
Yeah, $58, 68
$68 was this week. I actually checked it just to see what it was at now. $68. I don't know that a high-speed rail ticket can compete.
But how do you do that from Bakersfield?
From Bakersfield.
Well, Bakersfield's gonna be, that's where the Amtrak idea comes
But
from.
Bakersfield is not gonna have the ridership that high-speed rail needs to
Right.
justify
That's an
itself.
opinion. We don't know that. That's an opinion.
Whoa, yours is opinion too.
Yours
Now
is
let's go back to the opinion.
Yes, Parson
Gee.
Brinkerhoff, let me quote.
Precisely.
Barry speak. I'm just saying that Barry's making
Let me quote Parson Brinkerhoff.
It comes from Park Springhouse,
Yeah,
117 million.
they're a consultant from New York. What they are projecting that the high-speed train will run 1,000 passenger trains every 5 minutes, north and south. 70% of the time will be full, and 19 hours a day, 365 days a year. So 700 passengers will be going every 5 minutes, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year in both directions. That's what they are projecting.
That's 117 million people.
170 million people. That is ridiculous projection. That is totally out of this world. Has no logic. It's just somebody sitting, somebody decided to come up with figures to justify this stupid expense.
Eric, some comments?
This lady alluded to it, but what's the center point reason for requiring and needing absolutely security on high speed, but not on a futuristic Amtrak improvement? What's the center point reason one needs security and the other doesn't?
Man, I think I can answer that.
In my mind, it's simple that I don't see Amtrak as being a target like a high-speed train is gonna be.